Welcome to Last Night, your sci-fi recap show. The difference between vengeance and justice, that was a major theme last night on the CW, and of course, investigating the undead was a major theme on the Sci-Fi Channel. Joining me to talk about these themes is Commander Wolf of the SingOn Empire. Welcome back, Commander.
My pleasure, Liv.
So the SingOns believe in the concept of vengeance, is that correct?
It's not quite as simple as that. The old human saying about an eye for an eye. That is not how we view vengeance. We view it as a means of restitution to the one who was wronged, rather than punishment of the one who wronged them.
So what if someone does something that can't be put right, like murder? Do you have an equivalent of a life for a life?
I think some would refer to what we practice as a life debt. One who murders must spend the rest of his life in servitude to the family of the one he murdered.
That sounds a bit like slavery.
Oh, believe me, it's preferable to capital punishment. And the family has obligations to their indebted servant. There must be no mistreatment. And a family may choose to forgive the debt at any time.
Your culture is more progressive than I would have thought. So what do you think of last night's episode of Arrow, where the Arrow sees a darker version of himself, ready to execute anyone he personally finds guilty?
It's a perfect example of how quickly these situations can escalate. But I don't think the episode spent enough time on that particular theme. You see, most of Arrow's storytelling suffers from having to tell two stories in each episode, one on the island in the past, and the other in Starling City in the present. Both are compelling storylines, but finding a balance between the two is the real challenge.
They don't have the advantage of a show like Once Upon a Time, for example, which can flash back to any specific point in the past it needs to. Arrow's flashbacks are all in real time, you might say.
Exactly. Their need to keep both timelines moving in a consistent progression. That being said, they do manage that aspect of it fairly well.
My favorite moment was Felicia confessing to Oliver her fear that she wouldn't be able to talk to anyone about her day, even if she had someone to talk to. We are all used to heroes being solitary, but they more often than not have resigned themselves to that lifestyle. It's their sidekicks and other support staff that illustrate the real sense of loneliness at moments like these.
Well, considering how many people know his secret at this point, Oliver is hardly alone anymore. His family of support staff and sidekicks is almost as large as Batman's.
Speaking of sidekicks, I love how they're taking their time developing Roy Harper into Speedy. The flashbacks show Oliver's evolution into the Archer, but we still have the finished product right in front of us each week. We have no idea what Roy will be in the end, and I like that. He's not just dropping into the mix, like Robin or Batgirl.
To be fair, if the vigilante of Starling City was as cool as Batman, then Speedy might be more quick to team up with him, so to speak. I will say though, the scenes of Stephen Amell jumping over the rooftops and running through the streets in broad daylight were quite impressive. He must have SingOn blood in him.
I wouldn't be surprised. Let's move on to CW's other vengeance/sidekick-themed episode last night, Supernatural. Chrissy Chambers returns to the show after her debut in last year's episode, Adventures in Babysitting.
The girl is good at what she does, which is chopping the heads off of vampires. But she and her little Scooby-Doo gang found themselves led astray.
Chrissy and her friends had all lost their families to monsters, so when a monster hunter offered to train them to fight monsters, they didn't need any more encouragement than that.
As Alfred himself said, in one of the less sucky parts of Batman Forever, young men with a mind for revenge need little encouragement, they need guidance. Their guidance was coming from a man who was also out for vengeance, who thought he could create monster hunters even if it meant siding with a monster. I believe the term is well-intentioned extremist.
Actually, the term is psychopath. Victor didn't just side with a vampire, he set that vampire on innocent people, including the kids' families. Also, they would be ready and willing to destroy any creature that crossed their paths. Fortunately, Dean and Sam were able to talk them out of their blind rage and give them some proper guidance in the end.
As Dean told Chrissy, it's not always about killing. They were even able to save a girl's life, though I am sure they'll be more than a little haunted by the other vampires they were so quick to kill.
I don't doubt it. Speaking of haunting, last night we had another example of the differences between professional and amateur ghost hunting. The crew on Haunted Collector conducted a reasonable and respectful investigation of a haunted museum and even a Santeria ritual, while the guests on Stranded spent 5 days running and yelling.
I think, after having several series that focused on serious investigations of the paranormal, the Sci-Fi channel felt the best direction to take the genre from there was to show people completely losing their minds whenever a cat enters the room.
That was a surprisingly snarky theory, but it's probably correct. The 3 guests on Stranded last night, Princess Yark and Steven, yes, those are really their names, stayed for 5 days in a haunted hotel in British Columbia. I don't have a problem with them ignoring the sounds they heard on their first night there. After all, they were probably quite tired from the trip. But of all the episodes of Stranded I've seen to date, this one had probably the least amount of actual investigating.
As I believe may have been pointed out on this show before, no one knows how they will react to these situations until they are actually in them. But as I was saying, that is the whole point of the show. If people want serious investigations, then they have Haunted Collector and Ghost Hunters. Stranded is there simply for the entertainment of seeing people run through corridors like the Scooby-Doo gang.
You know, that's the second Scooby-Doo reference you've made today.
Is it? I guess I just see parallels to it a lot. They even teamed up with Batman once, I believe.
And your third Batman reference. Any more pop culture references and you could qualify to be on Supernatural.
One can only hope.
Thank you for joining me today, Commander Wolf.
My pleasure, Liv.
And thank you all for watching last night.